with all respect to how good their skill players on this particular offense were. Clemson just usually recruits at a better level. So I mean, yeah, I would imagine Garrett Riley's going to have some talent to work with.
For sure. Which hire of that list did you like the least, Matt Green, for this program?
I got to go Pete Golding. That's the one that I think is I think really remains to be seen, because it's like, did he leave Alabama for Ole Miss, or did Alabama say, hey, why don't you go look for another job at Ole Miss? Like, why don't you go see what else you can have? We're probably going to try to upgrade. So, I mean, you just look like what are you really getting with Pete Golding? I mean, you look at Alabama, the last 15 years, they've had 11 top 10 defenses, scoring defenses. One of those was in the last 5 years under Pete Golding. Like from 2008 to 2017, Alabama's average defense was ranked third, giving up 13.1 points per game over like almost a decade. And for Pete Golding's 5 years, their average is 13th. This is still Alabama. It's not bad. But they're giving up an average of 18.9 points per game the last 5 years. And it's just like, we know the talent that Alabama's getting. We saw what Kirby Smart was doing with this defense. We saw what Jeremy Pruitt did with this defense. And then Pete Golding came along, and it's just not at the same level. It's good now, but good is not what Alabama prides himself on. And they want to be elite. They want to be the best in the country. So I'm really curious to see where Alabama goes, because like Ole Miss – They need a savior for this defense. Like, you've seen on Lane Kiffin, one of the years they were like 100th in the country in defense. Like this past couple years, I think they were 50th. Like they're 57th. Like they have not been good defensively. They need someone to completely change that. And based on what Pete Golding's done at Alabama, like I'm not really sure that much is really going to change.
I think you're being a little bit too hard on Pete Golding, but I also think you're not taking enough into account. It's Ole Miss, Matt Green. Like, this is a huge win, I think, for Ole Miss. Like, they were ninth. Bama was ninth in scoring defense. Ole Miss was 57th. Like, there's no way Pete Golding's worse than Chris Partridge this past year. There's no way Ole Miss's defense gets worse with Pete Golding coming into the fray. Like, I mean,
but the players are a lot worse at Ole Miss than they're going to be at Alabama, playing against very similar competition in the SEC West.
I just feel like this is kind of a gift hire for Kiffin, where, I mean, obviously they cross paths when he was at Bama with Pete Golding. I don't know. It's like we're going to find out the chops for Pete Golding, right? Where it's like you've been under the Saban umbrella, where it's hard to figure out some of these guys, like, are they good or are they not, because they played at Alabama or they coached at Alabama. It's like, what would they look like in an average scheme or an average supporting cast? Like, we're about to learn right away if Pete Golding is a good standalone defensive coordinator at Ole Miss. Like you said, where the talent's a little bit different. But Kiffin won 10 games last year, 9 this year. I mean, the dude flirted with back-to-back 10-win seasons with a pretty subpar defense. I think if Pete Golding gets him to like 20th, 25th, if he can get him somewhere around there, and their offense is back to where it was 2 years ago with Matt Corral, and Kiffin can get them in that top 10, like, it's another 10, 11. Like, you're Ole Miss. Like, national championships are not the expectation. Could they have a really good foundation and a really good program if your base is Pete Golding and Lane Kiffin on both sides of the ball? I think that's a really good place to be.
I mean, I think that's possible. You know, it's not. He could make. They might not be a juggernaut defensively, but he could make them better than they currently are. But I mean, if you look at it, it's just like Alabama's defensive coordinator, just on paper. Look at the resume. Alabama's defensive coordinator leaving to be the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss. It's like, that doesn't really make sense. You know, it's like if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Like if a guy is just making a lateral move like that from Alabama, there's probably a chance he couldn't cut it at Alabama, honestly, because usually the guys who are leaving for Alabama are leaving for pro jobs or for NFL or for head coaching jobs. So, you know, I think who've been the last few coordinators to leave Nick Saban? I mean, it's Kirby Smart, it's Jeremy Pruitt on defense, it's
Mel Tucker,
Sarkisian, it's Lane Kiffin, it's, you know, the list goes on. Yeah, the list goes on. So this guy's leaving for a lateral job. It's like, I think it's probably because he wasn't necessarily cut out to be Alabama's defensive coordinator. But it's like, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean he can't improve Ole Miss's defense. Like you're saying, there's a lot of room for improvement for Ole Miss defensively.
Yeah, I just look at it. If I'm an Ole Miss fan, I'm like, awesome, let's ride. Like, what are your options? Like, could you really have done better than Pete Golding? I don't think so. I think it's a really slam dunk deal if you're Ole Miss. I think we have to readjust our expectations. They're never going to be Bama. They're never going to be Georgia, but they can be really good. They can be a 10-win team, 11-win team when they have the right quarterback and they have the kind of talent you need around this group. I mean, I don't know. I'm still super high on Kiffin and what he's got building there. We'll see how he handles this really weird quarterback room this spring, because it might include Spencer Sanders, Jackson Dart, and Mike Wright, all in the same quarterback room. But we'll see if that ultimately is what happens here. But either way, I think it will be interesting to see, and I think Bama's going to have new coordinators on both sides of the ball, right? I think that's part of where we're going. Like, Bill O'Brien's still the favorite to get the Patriots offensive coordinator job that opened back up because Cliff Kingsbury was like also rumored, and it's like, no, I'm going to go to Thailand. I'm good for a while. I'm just going to get away. And I don't know. I think if Bill O'Brien's gone, and then I think that makes sense. We're saving, like, you talk about cutthroat. Like, you lost 2 games by combined 4 points. You're not in the playoff this year. It's like, nope, massive changes. We gotta clean house on both sides of the ball. We got to readjust what we're doing. You just signed the best recruiting class in your program's history. You have David Pollock telling you to your face on a broadcast ahead of the national championship that Georgia now runs the sport. I don't know. I think it's going to be very, very fascinating to see where he goes offensively, if that is indeed where things go.